and
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
justice for all.
Okay, so we'll get started. Oh, can you mute yourself? With the approval of the March 28th minutes. Entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Thank you, Tom. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, we'll do a roll call. So I am a yes. Matt?
Yes.
April?
Yes.
Hillary?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Bruce?
Yes.
Okay. Moving on to disclosure of conflict of interest. Does anybody have a conflict or any of the votes that they're going to take tonight? Hearing none, we'll move on. Trafton Properties LLC is requesting a review for revisions to a previously approved subdivision at 4 Trafton Road. Yeah, so Hillary will have to, so,
Okay. Oh, she already did.
okay, perfect. Thank you, Hillary.
All right. Now you need to enable screen sharing for me.
As a panelist, you should be able to share your screen.
It's saying host disabled participant screen sharing.
Oh dear, I don't think I did. Let me check.
You're the co-host of
Like, that's not even an option. It seriously isn't even an option that I'm giving. I'm going to change your role to attendee, and then I'm going to invite you back in again. Just a sec.
Yep. Oh, start my video.
Does it allow you to do it, Chad?
I didn't see it there.
All right, now I'm an attendee. Join as a panelist. Hit the share screen. Host disabled participant screen sharing. Excellent.
Did it say it again? I'm sorry.
It did. Yep. Same thing.
Oh, I did not set up the Zoom meeting. Hang on. I can try to look
Right there.
at settings,
There you
but
go.
I didn't
Host
set
and
up.
participant.
No, he's got
We
it.
got it.
Oh, perfect.
Thank you, Chad.
Bingo. All right, here we go. All right, good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. My name is Doug Reynolds with Goral Palmer, representing Trafton Properties tonight. A few months back, we brought before you a subdivision plan for the property on Trafton Road, shown here on your screen as 4 Trafton Road. In the meantime, our surveyor realized they made an error on the front boundary. This plan that you see before you is the revised plan, and if you look real close on the recorded plan, well, there's this little corner right up here, and all right, I'm going to show you real quick. It's really a big deal. There's the difference. I gave you a zoom in on your package. All it is this little 3.03 measurement that was called out wrong and shown wrong on the original plan. So again, we're here before you tonight presenting this amended subdivision plan for your review and approval. Again, it was just a technical error on the surveyor's part. If you approve us tonight, we'll get it recorded and we'll move on. So that is all I have.
Awesome. Any questions for Doug? Anybody online? Okay. Do we have to go through a new findings and facts, or can we just approve the amendment? Okay. I'll motion that we approve the amendment.
Second.
Okay, we'll do a roll call. So I am a yes. Matt?
Yes.
April?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Bruce?
Yes.
And Hillary.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you very much. And hopefully that will
Hopefully that-
get the kinks out for the rest of the people tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Renewal Housing Associates LLC is requesting an informal pre-application review for Head of Falls Village, 60 apartments plus commercial space.
Sure. I'm Todd Alexander with Renewal Housing. We're a multifamily housing development company based out of Portland, Maine. We're here on a preliminary sketch plan review to talk about our project that we're proposing for downtown Waterville. It's a 1.7 acre site located between Appleton Front and Temple Street, shown here in the existing conditions. And what we're proposing is to redevelop this site, 2 buildings, about 83,000 square feet of mixed use, comprise a total of 63 housing units between the 2 buildings, about 21,000 square feet of commercial and retail space on the first floors, and a series of public improvements that you'll see in some of our imagery. So I'm going to do introductions first. We have a couple members of our team that are here, starting with Adrian Fine. Adrian's a civil engineer. She's going to walk you through first the site plan, existing conditions, and then our preliminary site plan. We also have Jesse Thompson from Kaplan Thompson Associates. He's our lead architect for the job. And Jesse's here to answer questions and talk a little bit about building design. Josh Benthing from Northland Enterprises, when he's not my chauffeur driving me to from Portland to Waterville for meetings. Josh runs a commercial real estate development company out of Portland called Northland Enterprises. And Josh is my business partner and primarily focused on the commercial and the retail aspects of the project. I'm focused on the housing pieces. So I'm going to let Adrian do the site plan presentation first. After we go through that, I'll come back and maybe Josh and Jesse will also jump in. We can talk a little bit about the building program. So Adrian will deal with the site. I'll focus on what's going on within the buildings, and then I don't know what the process is here, but we're happy to field questions or take comments, and we're primarily here to listen. So Adrian, I'll let you go.
All right, thanks, Todd. Adrian Fine, Teradyne Consultants. And this image is of the project site, so I'm going to go through and give you some context to the site and then the proposed development of our site plan. So the project site's located on Front Street, which is here on the right side of the image. And it's the entire block between Temple Street, which is on the lower part of the image, and Appleton Street, which is beyond this building with the red roof here. To the right-hand side is the park and the river, and then to the left-hand side in this image is Main Street. It's not visible here, but just to give you some context. This is the site outlined in red. That's the property line. The site is 1.7 acres. It's located in the commercial A zone, and it has frontage on Appleton Street, Front Street, and Temple Street. Today, there are 4 buildings on the site and a lot of pavement and gravel and limited landscaped areas. And as part of the project, the entire block will be redeveloped and all of the buildings will be removed. The site today is accessed in 2 locations on Temple Street and with a large curb cut along Front Street, which we're actually going to be closing up as part of this project today. That accesses a bunch of parking here That'll be cleaned up and matched in with the work that was recently done on Front Street by DOT. And then Appleton Street, there's one driveway today. There's overhead electric on Appleton and Temple, and underground utilities in all of the surrounding streets that we'll be using to serve the project. So this is the proposed site plan. The Head of Falls Village project will be centered around a shared drive, and that's this area shown in the center of the site. It's going to connect from Temple Street to Appleton Street with a surface of pavers, and it'll provide pedestrian and vehicle access into the site. There will be parking and designated pedestrian areas along this drive. There will be a 20-foot width for access for vehicles and for safety access, emergency vehicles. We'll also have trees and landscaping and other hardscape areas accessed from this drive to really make a pedestrian scale, kind of community-centered area in the middle of the site. Then off to the western side, we have a paved parking lot that can be accessed from the shared drive, but also from Appleton Street. The proposed project includes 2 buildings. Building A is along Temple Street here, and that's connected overhead to the annex on the 2nd floor. So that's actually one building connected overhead. And then Building B is located here at the corner of Front Street and Temple Street. We're also showing 2 potential future building sites on the property. Those are not proposed at this time, but we're just showing that the site could house 4 buildings at a maximum development. But again, it's just 2 buildings proposed at this time. All of the buildings will get new utilities. We'll have new water, sewer, underground electric, natural gas, and we've been working with the Kennebec Water District and Waterville Sewerage District to design all of those utilities. We'll also be providing stormwater management. We have to get a stormwater permit from Maine DEP, and we've also been working with connecting into the city's storm drain network. The parking lot on the western side here and parking along the shared drive provide 91 parking spaces on the site, and that meets the zoning ordinance requirements for the uses in the buildings. And we also met with the fire department to discuss the parking lot and go over dimensions of that and access to the buildings to make sure it meets or exceeds all of their requirements, and we're going to continue working with them as we finalize our plans. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Todd. You can just use that arrow if you want to.
Thank you. I'll give you a little bit of background of the building program. What I want to highlight for you is sort of 3 themes that were sort of consistent throughout all of our planning and design work, and really kind of guided us in landing on the design that we came up with. Obviously, very, very large site, and we could have gone in a lot of different directions. So there's sort of the natural question of why this plan and why was it oriented the way that it is. And there's really sort of 3 main goals that are sort of guideposts that informed us on when we came up with the plan. So the first thing is that everything that we're doing, we want it to be mixed use. That's obviously a part of the commercial A zoning, but also one of our goals. We really wanted this development to connect with and be a continuation of Main Street and follow the traditional Main Street development patterns. So what we're proposing within the 2 buildings on Temple and on Front is first floor commercial and retail, very consistent with traditional downtown development patterns. The second thing that was really important to us as we're trying to figure out this plan is housing. This is very much, first and foremost, a housing project. We wanted to get as many housing units as we could on this site that would be supported by the site, supported by the market. These are always kind of balancing acts. So there are trade-offs between parking or commercial space or housing units, and we were trying to push the envelope as much as we could in terms of maximizing the amount of housing that we could get on the site. The other thing that within the housing world, we have an internal goal to have some level of affordable housing. I'm an affordable housing developer. I've been developing affordable housing for about 20 plus years. And, as my partners will tell me, I'm not allowed to touch a project that doesn't have some affordability component. So we kind of looked at the market, and we looked at some of the other projects that have either been built or that are being proposed. We didn't want to compete with those, but we still want to do some affordability, and we landed on what we call workforce housing for our affordable component. And what that means technically is housing that's affordable to households at 80% of the area median income level or below. Some call this workforce housing, some call it missing middle housing, but it's sort of that middle market type of housing that's not often addressed. In fact, it's some of the hardest housing to build. There are a lot of financial programs available to build low and moderate income housing. There's a lot of financing options to build market rate housing. It's the stuff in the middle that doesn't really get addressed. But that's what we kind of heard and surveyed the market, and based on some of the other things that were being built, that's where we wanted to focus. The third thing that we wanted to do is that we wanted to have, what I call sort of a really robust package of public benefits. This is a privately owned site. This will be a privately owned site. But when you're in a downtown, it's a public project. It's going to be part of the downtown. You can't avoid it. And we really wanted there to be, a lot of community benefits associated with the project. Naturally, a large investment, building housing, doing workforce housing, having new commercial spaces, all and new public infrastructure, all have public benefits. But we wanted to go a little bit further, and admittedly, we're very ambitious with what I would consider our public improvements. The highlight of that is this shared drive that sort of bisects the site that Adrian talked about a little bit. This will become sort of a natural extension of Main Street, very pedestrian friendly, a lot of retail activity happening along both sides of that shared street, and is really sort of in our view, sort of the magic behind the entire design process. So let me flip through a couple of renderings. So apologies, we're showing a 5-story building for the building along Front Street. The building along Temple Street will also be 5 stories. This was done before we were able to get to that decision and get some extra units. But this does give you some sense of sort of the scale and the design and how this is intended to fit into the downtown. Again, very active sort of storefront, first floor retail, kind of street level, very engaging, and then that housing uses above. We have a couple of renderings that take you down to the shared street level, so you can get a feel of what that's like. No curbs. It's sort of controlled chaos, if you will, intentionally. So cars can drive down this, but there are design cues to go slowly because there are going to be people walking around and on bikes, and it's a little bit, just a very sort of different urban design aesthetic. Here's a view from Appleton looking back up that shared drive. We show building C, or what we call building C, a potential future development in the foreground. But this is the backside of building A, and then in the distance, building B along Front Street. But again, very, very heavy focus on the shared street. We think this is, we wanted to create a place that becomes part of sort of Waterville's downtown urban landscape, if you will. Very inviting, the kind of place where you just want to go and hang out, very attractive for the public to come and spend time. There's some view corridors from this space down into the river. And, it's a type of place that can host civic events and community activities. The farmers market types, activities, food truck days, pop-up cafes. You know, it's a kind of where you can get off a busy street and host those types of events. So I think we have so again, from the Appleton Street side, looking back up. So within the buildings themselves, again, the program you're looking on the left-hand side is Building B along Front Street, 45 apartments on the upper floors. On the first floor, retail uses. We do have an anchor tenant for a sort of a downtown market. For that building, still looking for other tenants, but probably food and beverage, most likely. And then Building A, which we can just see the backside here. This is again along the shared street. So this gives you a good sense of Building A, mixed use again. This one, 2 floors of office and commercial space. And then it'll be 3 floors of housing above that, a total of 18 units. Those 18 units are going to be our workforce housing units. And again, those are going to be set aside to be affordable to households at 80% of the area median income. So naturally, I didn't let Jesse or Josh jump in here at all. But there's the building program, and that's the overview. Happy to answer any questions that we can, or take any comments. I don't know what the, I'm sorry, I don't know
Yeah,
what
no,
the.
that's fine. Is there a reason why you're doing 2 floors of commercial rather than more housing? Is
We,
it just economically or?
good question. We're talking with prospective tenants.
Okay.
I would say so we need the additional floor plan to accommodate that. As I describe our vision for Building A, if you can think of the Shupf Center for kind of the hub for the arts, we're thinking of this as being sort of a hub for economic and business development activity. So this is a place where, sort of the business entrepreneur, the startup businesses, the remote working professional can come, shared office space, or network with folks involved in community and economic development. That floor plan along Temple Street is relatively modest, so we needed a little bit more room. The annex is also very, very skinny. So it was really about trying to get to a certain target. And I think we ended up with about 15,000 sort of net square footage for
So the larger buildings, 4 housing floors and 1,
4 over 1 of
Okay.
retail. Yep, exactly.
I understand now. And so the buildings don't face Front Street at all?
So they're going to be, there are no backsides to that building along Front Street. It will face both Front Street and this shared drive. A lot of the retail activity will be sort of engaged from the shared street, not the Front Street side. Front Street's very, very difficult for that retail activity. I mean, it really is a bypass road, and we struggled with that for a long time. So the building will still have, it won't feel like the backside of a building when you're on Front Street, but you would not be entering into the building from Front Street for that retail activity.
Yeah, I think it's really important that the Front Street side doesn't feel like the back of a building.
Yeah.
For 2 purposes. You don't want to turn your back to the river.
Yeah.
I mean, cities all over Maine are spending millions of dollars right now to turn their cities back towards the river. And for the walkability of the beautiful downtown park that we spent millions of dollars creating,
Yeah.
we don't want it. It feels more cohesive if the buildings also face that, right?
Yeah.
Talking about cohesion. My other comment is just like design wise, I would love to see it. Like, I understand why it's one large building and economically that makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
But if there's a way to somehow separate the different storefronts and the lookability of it so that it doesn't just look like one giant concrete block and it looks like individual buildings to some extent as well. I think that might help with like the historic nature of our downtown. We're starting to lose a lot of that character, and I think a lot of people would really appreciate
Yeah, we,
keeping some of it. Oh, we could take public comment after.
So, I mean, you're hitting right on the design things that we've been focused on. And I think one of the things that we're working on with that building along Front Street is that it sort of twists and turns a little bit and sort of jogs in and out, and there'll be some bays. With those bays and with how the building turns, we can change materials, play with materials. So to kind of hit on what you're talking about, once we landed on this design, there was a point in time where it was a monolithic block, and we're like, we got it. And then we started tinkering with it, but it's a good point. We're definitely
Yeah.
focused on it.
I mean, I love the look of like the brick with the dark at the top even.
Yeah.
I think that's great. I know the monolithic block kind of look is really trendy right now, but
Yeah.
is it going to be trendy in 10 years?
Yeah.
Like how can we really play on some of those historic elements of this area? I mean, this Front Street neighborhood, if you look through historic pictures, it was just a really interesting, like culturally significant area, and it's a shame that it's basically been it's completely gone at this point. But it would be fun to like somehow play in some of those historic elements of the community.
So we keyed off of that a little bit, this thing we're calling the annex, which will be sort of this more of an open air kind of workspace, pretty raw and industrial-ish inside. So we have this sawtooth design to the roof line, which very much takes its cue from a lot of woolen mills in Maine and throughout the country. It was sort of a way to get natural light and ventilation into those mills. So we're playing off of that design with that roof line.
Would the annex design be that's all commercial area right
Yeah,
there?
that's going to be all this workspace, kind of open air workspace. Yeah.
I don't know if you have seen this. Does anybody else have any questions?
I do.
Yeah.
One, I want to thank you for bringing an exciting project like this to Waterville. I know you can go anywhere. As a market rate landlord, I do see a big need for that in the area. I just had a couple questions on the parking. How many designated spots are there for the residential versus the commercial use?
So the zoning requires one unit designated for each housing unit. We're going to provide off-street parking for all of the residents through the 91 spaces. And then during the day, there's only a relatively, let's get to. So the first thing I would say, the plan is still fluid. Nothing's locked
Sure.
down. We have I'll highlight this area. So those are tandem parking spaces, 2 deep.
Yep.
So those will be designated 24/7 for some of the 2-bedroom apartments.
Gotcha.
Tandem's a little bit unusual parking style, but they'll work fine for a 2-bedroom apartment. So those will be designated to an apartment. They'll stay with the apartment all the time. And then we're going to come up with sort of a shared parking arrangement for the rest of the parking on the site. So in the northern end of that parking lot, overnight use designated for residents. During the day, shared parking for some of the office use. The shared drive, there's 14 parking spaces along the shared drive. That's open for the shorter-term retail parking during the day. So we're still trying to refine it, but that's sort of big picture kind
Understood.
of where
And
we're
then
going.
just with the possibility of a future building, has that been incorporated into the parking, or would that be kind of a figure it out at that time?
Yeah, it's a figure, we come back to you and we have a plan of how to
Yep.
be able to build that building and still address the parking needs. We were very, very intentional about how we designed out the site so that we could accommodate that future development. But we understand it's going to have to come with a plan for parking.
Excellent. Thank you.
I have a question.
Yeah, Tom.
Okay. Most of my questions about parking and the visual appearance were already asked, but do you have a rendering of the facade facing Front Street? Because it wasn't included in the slides. Maybe you could provide that when we get to the next time we review this, just
Yeah.
to see what the side of the building looks like.
Yep.
And my other concern was that since you mentioned a market, that's probably going to mean delivery trucks. There are already a lot of delivery trucks in that area. How do you propose that the trucks will turn into that shared drive, and will there be enough room for them to turn, or have if their cars parked along the shared drive, will the trucks be able to get through? How do you envision handling deliveries?
Good question. So the drive is designed to accommodate larger vehicles. And actually went through with the fire department as well to make sure that they'll have the turning radius that they need to bring in the tower trucks. So yes, the idea is that delivery trucks can use the shared drive. There's a spot sort of midway down where it sort of tees, and there's sort of a short-term delivery parking stall set up there. That's kind of a little bit of the magic behind the shared drive, is that it's got this multi-purpose use, and it's going to get used in different ways at different times for different people. So when the delivery truck comes, it doesn't have to park on Temple Street, right? Or it doesn't have to park on Front Street and back up traffic. There's a place they can pull off, get into this shared drive, find a little area, pull off to the side in the parking or in the shorter term parking that we have for delivery trucks, and accommodate some of the retail users. So that's the plan.
You envision the traffic flow entering from the Temple Street side and then exiting onto Appleton? Is that correct?
So it's designed to be two ways, and it meets the width to be two ways. But it's tight, and again, sort of intentionally tight, so it's not going to promote. It's not going to be a street that somebody wants to cut through in order to go from Temple to Appleton, right? It's going to be a pain in the butt to try to cut through there, quite honestly. But it's designed for two-way traffic.
My concern was that sometimes, just from experience on Appleton Street, if there's a church service at St. Joseph's, and then there's parking on both sides on Appleton Street, will the trucks or vehicles coming in and out of the proposed development be able to make that tight radius turn onto Appleton?
That's why we have Josh. Josh is always sitting in the meetings, making sure that we can serve the commercial tenants. But yeah, we are considering that for sure.
Okay.
Great. Hillary?
Yeah, the questions I had written down were about parking, residential and commercial, and also asking for a rendering for Front Street. So I think my questions were asked. But I will comment that I'm actually really excited about that shared drive for vehicles and for pedestrians. Reminds me a lot of sort of European pedestrian zones. I think with the pandemic, we've had a lot more sort of outdoor eating areas, and I kind of envision the possibility of outdoor space where people can sort of meet. I really like it. I think it's nice. So well done.
Thank you. So we borrowed it. We borrowed it from the Dutch. It's called a Vunif, but it's you're starting to see some of these in Portland with some of the developments.
I think it's really appealing.
Bruce.
Thank you. Hi, Todd. I think we met this summer when you showed the governor the area, and I think she was pretty impressed with it as well. So
yes,
it's great to have you back here for sure. So my question, when do you expect you would come back to us for like a, vote in approval?
I think we're probably sometime later this spring or early summer. We're
great, because I mean, we all know, the crunch with apartments, or housing in general. So there's no doubt there's a big need, and echo what Matt said. Thank you for choosing our area. So my other question is, we talk about workforce housing, 80% or below of the average income. Is that what it was? And what would that be in dollars? I think people like to put a figure on something.
So
presently.
Yep. So it's defined as a household that has to be affordable. The apartments have to be affordable to households earning 80% of the area median income or below. It's defined by, and the area median income is for Kennebec County. And there's a different income level depending on household size. So today, the one-person household, Kennebec County, 80% AMI is about $45,000. And the two-person household, 80% AMI is 53, I think. It updates annually. It's published by HUD. And again, that serves as a cap. It's at or below in terms of household eligibility. And then there's a very, very complicated formula that sets the rent to make sure that it's affordable to that household that's below 80% AMI.
So people
And-
making
and you
over
ha-
45 wouldn't qualify.
Would not, if you're a one-person household earning over 45,000, we are renting the unit today, you would not be eligible to rent. Yes. What's that? In building A.
Oh,
In
only in A.
building B. Yes. No
Follow
restrictions.
up then, so if somebody were renting at today's, those income levels, the cost of that, one bedroom or two bedroom would be how much?
So it's an all-in rent figure, so your total renting expenses cannot exceed the published rent, and the one-bedroom published rent today is, I think, $1,285, and the two-bedroom is $1,445, in that range.
Do you plan on providing utilities in this, or?
So in that formula, that most likely the owner will pay for all utilities, but again, the formula is very complicated, but when you add in all of the utilities, if the resident is paying the utilities, plus the rent charge, all of that cannot exceed the figure that I just gave you.
Right.
Yep.
Okay, thanks for that
Yep.
info. Obviously, yeah, it'll be a struggle for some people still, but, thank you for doing your best to, not all, so that it's not all market rate at least. Thank you.
Yep. And I would say traditionally, the housing that I've built, actually not in Maine, but we do a lot of work in other states, most of it has been serving 30, 50, and 60% AMI households. That's sort of naturally what the work that I do. You have two relatively large projects in the pipeline here in Waterville that are targeting similar income groups. One that's just going to be a few hundred yards from this property, and we just didn't think it was appropriate, given where all the needs are, to sort of try to compete with that project and deliver the exact same type of housing for effectively the same market.
I think I would agree. I think that this is definitely an area of market rate and that workforce rate are areas of need in our area.
Yep.
And I like the idea of having some mix, that it's not all workforce, it's not all market. I think that there's a lot of benefit to that,
Yeah.
And if you add in the third building and that's another market rate, then that it all kind of ties in together really well. It's not all 55 plus. It's not all,
Yep.
I like that it's a mixed use. It gives it a lot more of a community feel, I think.
Yep. And that's really the beauty. I mean, it's the beauty of downtowns they're diverse on all levels: architecture, uses, transportation, housing choices. So we're having a diversity of types of housing and serving different markets sort of adds to that vibrancy, sort of natural vibrancy in a downtown. Yeah.
Any other comments from the board? All right, members of the public.
Hi, I'm Jacob Lavarnway, and I've got a lot of questions about this development, a lot of technical details. At the city council meeting on March 21st, you mentioned that the fourth building, the one on Appleton, would be considered if parking could be negotiated with the city. How did you mean that specifically? What would be amenable, or would you be amenable to the planning board and the city waiving minimum parking requirements for the entire development site that you would construct a fourth building, or did you mean that you wish to construct additional parking elsewhere?
Yeah, sorry. I'm sorry. We don't have a portable mic, so.
Here we do. Oh wait, this.
Yeah, it's not ours. Maybe I misspoke, but the development of either the third or fourth building is not contingent on a specific negotiation with the city for parking. It's just, it would be contingent on us having a parking solution in some manner, whether it be on a public parking lot or a private one. I'm very supportive to the idea of waiving or minimizing parking requirements for infill urban developments. I would say Portland has gotten very aggressive in terms of being flexible with their parking requirements for new developments. And it's been an evolution over, I've been in Portland for 22 or 23 years, and they've become more lenient. And I think it's, quite frankly, made a lot of the downtown neighborhoods a lot more livable. And I would deem it a success. So I would encourage the city to consider it. I look at the parking at the head of Falls, I look at the parking at the concourse, and this city has an enormous resource to attract downtown development. I understand parking's a very sensitive issue for a lot of folks. There's always tension around it. But it's a great resource to, if somebody can build housing and not have to pay to build a lot of parking to service that housing, that's a benefit. You have a competitive advantage and an ability to draw in potentially new development and get housing for it. So I would look at it that way, that it's really sort of a scarce resource that you have that could be a great tool to encourage additional development. And I'm sure people are going to laugh at me when I say this. There will be people living here that do not own cars. I guarantee it. Maybe not a lot, but there will be. I guarantee it. Every development that I've done in Portland, I haven't done a ton, but we've done a few. And I have people who show up in some case. I've done for sale housing in Portland, and they show up at the closing and they say, I sold my car yesterday, I bought a new bike, and I'm ready to live an urban lifestyle without a car. So it will happen. It's, obviously Waterville's not Portland, a long way to go, but in terms of folks being unwedded from their car, but, that's part of living in a downtown environment is and a lower cost type of living where you're not having to support a car. So it's a very good point, and I do support it. It's a great idea. What?
Not just bikes?
Very supportive of all public transportation. And Jesse will make sure that we have lots of bike racks, I guarantee it. Okay.
That is a great segue into my next question. Is there going to be any secured bicycle storage within the first floors of any of these developments?
Yeah, so the building, the short answer is yes. So the last project that I built in Portland, we do bike storage. They're very, very common. It's always about the size and how many bikes you can accommodate, but and we haven't finalized any of the floor plans, but that's definitely something that we'd consider. I'm going to stay right here. So you can
I got 2 more questions.
All right.
Maybe 3. Hold on. Can we pull back to the slide that's got the paving shown of the pedestrian plaza?
From the overhead like this, or?
Yeah, that works. Yep. Right there.
All right.
Right. I've noticed right in the area where we have the drive zone, this is all paved smoothly. What I would like to see for these drive lanes is that the paving is done in a zigzag of brick, like it's done in the Netherlands, because that'll add in more road noise and make it more uncomfortable for drivers to go through here at high speeds.
Oh, I see.
All right. And also, is the paving of this area going to be graded up? It's like when you're entering into the zone, are you going to be grading up to this area, or is the brick going to be grading down to the street? I don't know how to phrase it.
I think I understand your question. So you would access both at Appleton and Temple. You're at the grade of those existing streets today, or at the sidewalk.
Okay, so it's not going to be like a.
You're not rising or dropping off.
Okay, so the
significantly.
sidewalk's going to dip down towards the road, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Modestly, yes.
Last question. Who is in charge, or who would be in charge of building and maintaining the utilities for this plaza? Would that maintenance money have to come out of the development's pocket, or would that be coming out of the city's pocket?
So all the public infrastructure that's going to be built here is going to be privately owned. We're going to potentially source public funds for some of it because there are programs available where you can access public funding programs to pay for utility infrastructure. But we will then be responsible for, we will then own it and we will be responsible for maintaining it.
Yeah,
So
that
this is
pass-through won't be a city street.
correct.
Okay.
And it applies to the street, it applies to, there's underground water, sewer, natural gas, electric.
Okay, that's good. I wanted to make sure that the city wasn't going to be footing the bill for maintenance for this area. Last question. It's about tax values per acre. Do you know what the overall value of this whole development site will be once it is completely developed or at various stages of development? Got to make sure that it's going to be enough value so that it's going to bring in the town property tax to make it worth it.
So I would prefer not to hazard a guess of what the assessed value will be. Every municipality assesses property values differently. So it's a little premature for me to do that. I would say that the plan that you're looking at here is on the magnitude of $30 to $35 million in total investment in the city.
It would appears to be a net positive based off of the existing infrastructure.
The current assessed value is under $500,000 and less than $13,000 in property tax revenue. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other comments from the public? If you say it loud enough and he rephrases your question, I think we could probably get around the back and forth.
I just want to underscore the same concern. My name's Randy Cummings. I'm a resident of Waterville. I actually wanted to comment about a different topic this evening, but this one piqued my interest. Just want to, again, underscore the parking situation, right? So if I heard it right, we're talking 45 units and 91 spots, some of which are tandem to support two-bedroom apartments and the employees of the shops and customers. I really think we need to take the weight of that, and with the understanding that Temple's already pretty much a one-way street because of because of the parking situation on Temple. The lot beside it, behind Royal Biscuit, also always full. Probably 6 or 7 times as a Waterville resident, trying to give my business to the restaurants downtown and not being able to find a spot in the concourse or Temple or Appleton, and deciding not to walk from the head of Falls at night, which can have kind of a sketchy drive in there. I don't think we can take that parking lightly, and I love the project. I just think that needs to be a serious concern, I guess.
Yeah, so the comments were around parking and the amount of parking, if you couldn't hear online, and just how congested Temple Street already is, which Temple Street is congested.
And I guess just one more comment to kind of drive that home is more of a rebuttal to the comment that a lot of these apartments may not have any vehicles owned by the tenants or who choose not to drive. But I think the other side of that coin is all the vehicles that park in that lot now that aren't doing business with that lot because there's nowhere else to park to give other businesses that are already there their, patronage.
I do understand too what you've said about parking, and there's a lot of shared parking downtown, and I think that's great for the businesses and stuff. But the people that do live downtown, this is something I've heard from multiple people that do live in the downtown. The time that it becomes a problem is when it snows, right? Like we don't have, when there's no street parking, we don't have a parking garage that you can go park your car like you can in Portland. So when there's a parking ban and it snows, there's nowhere for people to put their cars if they can't be in the concourse. So that is sort of when it becomes more complicated, I think, for people that live in the downtown and do have cars, which is one of the reasons why I think it's important that you do have your parking plan. And I think that the parking plan is fairly adequate for the use, because the people that are living in those apartments aren't going to be there all day too, right? So there is going to be some trade-off within the parking for the people that are patronaging the businesses or working in those buildings, and the people that live in them, right? There'll be a different people parking there at night versus during the day.
Right.
And they'll be able to share some of those parking spots, of course, but.
Yeah, I mean, we're very, at the last meeting, I said, nobody's going to care more about parking than I am, right? Because we're going to spend a lot of money building apartments and retail space, and if we can't provide parking for our residents and the units are not attractive and the retail spaces are not attractive, we're going to be hurt substantially. So we want to get it right. I would say 60 days ago, we had a version of this plan, and we had 71 or 72 parking spaces, and we're like, maybe this will work. And we went back to the drawing board, and now we're at 91. At some point, you start to sacrifice housing units, right, or sacrifice something else. And so I appreciate your comment. It's a constant sort of tension to try to get it right, and it's always sort of imperfect science. But for us, it is really about we want to make sure we hit the mark in terms of the housing units, which we understand are really important.
And hopefully having this development along Front Street will also make the river development a little safer, right? There'll be more of a presence of people there 24 hours a day, and that will help with that feel of the river walk and making that entire thing feel a little safer. I think
that's a phenomenal point. I mean, if we walk down there right now, there's 175 plus vacant parking spaces. And I would agree, they probably feel a little bit unsafe for folks who want to use them to go walk somewhere on Main Street. But the building and the activity on this site I think will change that perspective.
Any other comments? Yeah, April.
Oh, are you sure? Okay. Yeah, so thanks to Hillary for bringing up that this is kind of, well, and yourself, being borrowed from the Netherlands. And I was kind of looking, and it occurred to me, and this is just right, this is kind of also the parking, snow removal thing. How does snow removal occur in a situation like this?
Yep. So, let's see. So, and we have a couple of places for snow storage. Obviously, what we're described as the future building site for Building C. That's going to be sort of a landscaped lawn area that will be able to accommodate snow storage. Right next to it in that paved area, at the sort of the nose heading towards Front Street, we'll be able to accommodate some snow storage. The reality is that we're probably going to be doing a fair amount of off-site hauling, and that's kind of common practice in some other more dense areas.
And so if we end up with kind of a ice pack like we do sometimes, it's going to be kind of suggested where the roadway is versus the walkway. You know what I mean? Like, is it going to be like a plow that goes down the center of that bricked area and
That
then?
whole, yeah, that really the whole area has to be cleared. Both it's set up as 6-foot wide sidewalks, a 20-foot wide drive aisle, 8-foot wide parallel parking, and then another 6-foot wide sidewalk. So effectively, all of that needs to get cleared out during a heavy snow event.
Thank you.
Okay.
That was actually part of my question, but please also forgive my main question coming up, which is there a difference in aesthetics when it comes to the two buildings or amenities when it comes to the 18 units and other?
Not necessarily. So a lot of I mean, maybe Jesse could jump in here. In terms of the building, the applicable building codes, they're similar for both buildings. In terms of some of the finishes within the units, we might, moderate those a little bit. If we have the most expensive units on the upper floor of that Front Street building, we might have a higher end finish package of appliances and countertops and things like that. The 18 workforce units are partially financed through a program with Maine Housing. They have certain construction standards that we have to abide by, which drive some of those finishes and those types of things. So, but generally not a big difference.
How many 1, 2 do we not know yet?
We have placeholders. So of the 18, 12 one bedrooms, 6 2 bedrooms. Of the 45.
Just a mix of 1 and 2s? Or?
3, 6, 9. We have 16 2 bedrooms.
Okay.
Of those 45. I think that's right. So 29 1 bedrooms in building B.
And are these pet friendly, meaning dogs and cats?
That's a good question. Every time I have one of these meetings, somebody asks something I haven't thought about yet. You did it. You win. But most likely, in Portland, you have to do pet friendly.
Oh.
And
Some
yeah.
apartments here are just cats, right?
Yeah.
What was that question?
The question was if the apartments will be pet friendly.
I mean, in Portland, you don't have to
Thank
do
you.
it, but you sort of, from a marketing perspective, I think most, a lot offer
Yeah.
pet friendly buildings.
I guess you think about that, right?
I knew there would be a question I hadn't thought of. So.
Any other comments from members of the public?
Real quick, will you guys be able to be putting in will you guys be able to put in a bikeway on Front Street, or is that not within your jurisdiction? And I know you mentioned you want to have all your buildings facing the river. Is there going to be a door here? I can't really see if there's going to be a door on either of these two buildings. Just that people can get in there from.
Yeah, so there will be access from Front Street. Again, it won't be the main entrance to the building, either the residential or the commercial spaces. The main entrances will be on that shared street side. There'll be secondary means of egress on Front Street. Your first question. So Front Street will have a public sidewalk.
Okay.
Within the street, that's part of Route 201. It's state. So I don't think we're going to have much success trying to get a bike lane on Route 201.
Great. Great. I didn't see any online. Do any attendees have their hands up? Nope. Well, thank you. We'll look
Thanks very
forward
much.
to
I really
seeing
appreciate it.
the final plans.
Yeah, appreciate the comments. Thank you.
Oh, did I just see a comment that says, is there a comment? Okay. There's a hand now. Sorry.
It may have been mine.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Trying to
That's perfect. Thank you, Alex. So we are on to item number 4, item number 5, even better. Gaunt's Investments LLC is requesting informal pre-application review for a solar farm at 20 and 30 Airport Road.
Thank you. I'll just make sure I can share really quickly. All right, and I will get to a drawing. All right, thanks very much. My name is Alex Roberts-Perel. I work with Revision Energy. I'm here on behalf of Gaunt's Investments, Chris Gaunt, and Central Maine Motors. And before this, I guess this does represent the next 2 items on the agenda. Do you want me to try to keep them separate to pre-application?
We can,
I don't know if it matters to your process, or for efficiency, we can bleed them to
we can bleed them together,
into one.
I guess.
All right, perfect. So this is a pre-application proposal adjacent to potential zoning amendment at 20 and 30 Airport Road. These are part of the Central Maine Motors kind of property conglomerate, lots 18 and 20 of map 36. This is currently the commercial C zone, so that'll be a theme throughout. It's not currently a zoned use. These, there are 2 discrete arrays that are actually connected as one in the eyes of the utility, so I'll just refer to it as the project or the array, whereas it's 2 fenced arrays. It totals 280 kilowatts AC. It is about 15,000, 18,000 square feet of modules, so it does fit your definition of solar farm. I've heard, and I'll steal the term from another planning board, that it's more of a solar garden compared to the larger scale utility systems that you see in the state. The array would be owned outright by Central Maine Motors. All of the energy produced would be a direct benefit back to their CMP-owned accounts. The project is currently approved by CMP. It has an active interconnection agreement, and I can just walk you through a few of the design features and then open it up to other questions. I'll stay close to the microphone and use my cursor. There's existing 3-phase power down Airport Road, which is off to the west here. The actual airport is through the trees and I can just zoom out really quick for general scheme. So 3 phases coming down Airport Road, and onto the site. So the interconnection of the project will occur from an existing overhead pole, which a new service will be brought to a pad-mounted transformer roughly in this area, location to be determined by CMP. And then all utilities from that pad-mounted transformer run underground conduit to each array, which has inverters, combiners, kind of standard electrical equipment for solar array. The arrays stand about 10 to 12 feet to the high edge from grade, fixed to aluminum steel racking systems, fixed to earth screws throughout the array. We'll call it the southern array 2 area is all cleared, and the debris has been, I think, already removed from what was formerly kind of junk and car storage. The northern array would involve tree clearing of this area and then revegetation for pollinated mixing grass. I can stop there for questions if you'd like. We can
What
talk
are
about
those 3 buildings next to that?
that is I believe a storage property. It's just self-storage.
Self-storage. Okay.
Yep. I can run through, I guess, really quick. Even though it's not currently zoned, and that will be a piece, it would still obviously be designed to meet the general zoning standards for solar arrays, which I believe is Article 4. So I can run through some of those really quick.
Yeah, I just have a quick question. So you don't envision it being a problem for the airport? Are you going to have to get FAA?
We're already we've submitted for FAA. It's essentially, it's called the notice criteria tool, which can either determine no further action or additional submittal. And so we have construction submittals essentially that says once you reach your high point, you file it with them, but there's no significant impacts right now. And we've also already initiated a glare assessment for the project. But the FAA has recently kind of updated how they treat solar arrays, and it's really only an issue that's flagged if there's direct line of sight to an array from a traffic control tower. Otherwise, it's just widely now treated as if it was essentially a body of water.
Okay.
So by the time we were at a position of a formal application, our glare analysis and everything will be lumped into that. But as of right now, it's the location through the trees is not anticipated to be an issue.
What is the timeline for the?
It'll be, I think, dependent on the zoning amendment process,
Okay.
which we can touch on. We had consulted with Anne a couple of months ago when we initiated the process, and she had identified the commercial C zone is not currently an allowed use for a solar farm, and had recommended the approach of add that zone. That's kind of the most direct pathway. She did indicate there was maybe a question of whether there was a consideration for other approaches to that, which I'm happy to speak to. I think our intention is to work through Anne's recommendations and the board's recommendations. I think, as I understand it, the city council and planning process for a zoning amendment would go pretty well into the spring, just with the back and forth. And then the only other permitting going on with the project, because Central Maine Motors, kind of call it the conglomerate of their property, has existing DEP permits, we'll just be working with the environmental consultants to amend those permits to bring this in, mostly just to keep their paperwork up to speed. A project of this size really won't have any stormwater impacts or significant environmental impacts. It's really just being in compliance. So I think we would be targeting full application, I guess similar to the last folks, end of spring, early summer.
Great. I guess I can get us started on the zoning conversation. I think my proposal, I have no problem with this project at all. I think it makes perfect sense for Central Maine Motors and is very logical. I don't know if it's appropriate to add solar to the entire commercial C zone, just because we have a separate solar district for the purpose of being able to review the solar arrays. I'm wondering if instead of making that blanket type of zoning change, it would be more appropriate to look at what the size of the solar farm is versus, like, this isn't really a solar farm, it's solar arrays that they're using for their business. And that's kind of a different thing. So I'm wondering if maybe it makes more sense to look at what we're defining as a solar farm, if it's the size of the array, or if it would be more appropriate to just do this as like a contract zone and add this use to their property. So I guess that's where I stand on it, and I'm happy to open it up to the planning board.
I can make one.
You can't add a use to a contract zone, you can only eliminate uses from the contract zone as it's defined. But you could add, I'm sorry. You could revise the setback requirements in the solar farm district. So in other words, rezone this to solar farm and make exceptions on the setback. The setbacks are an issue for this project in the solar farm district.
Okay.
That's what I would suggest if the rest of the board agrees that you don't want to to add solar farms to the entire commercial C zone.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with Samantha.
I think to Anne's point with the setbacks, I think the current setback of the solar farm district as an overlay are 40 or 50 feet. Correct me if I'm wrong there. And so we would certainly support or be interested in, if the language was around setbacks, to try to implement the existing setbacks of the commercial zone, which are 20 feet, to allow the full use of the area. If the setback increased to meet the solar farm district as is to that, I think it is 50-ish feet, then the output and capacity of the system would be fairly significantly limiting for Central Maine Motors for trying to utilize what's right now not utilized space in this area. And
Yeah, I'm fine with, I mean, it's their land, right? Like,
Yeah.
I think those setbacks are for when we put it in a rural area and it's abutting
Yeah.
residential neighborhoods and all of that stuff. And
that's my assumption, but
yeah, so-
and that's how it's written. So I would let Ann draft something that you're all comfortable
Truthfully,
with.
I don't think the ordinance itself was written with the idea of businesses putting their
Sure,
own
yep.
solar in. You know,
Yeah.
it was written as a solar farm.
Yeah, more
So-
traditional rural
yeah,
area, large format
And so
project.
this has brought up a new issue. But Tom,
If we do rezone, is this one parcel or two parcels? Is that what we're looking with the two buildings? Is it a single parcel?
It's two, I guess, congruent parcels, both owned by
Okay.
the same group.
Okay. So if we were rezoning to a new solar farm zone, would there be any conflict of having commercial buildings in the solar farm zone, or is that essentially grandfathered? Do we have any guidance on that? Is that a problem?
Would the it's I think an Ann question because we haven't discussed this approach of
Okay.
and I'm not sure how that solar farm district works, if it would be an overlay over part of the parcel,
Okay.
just where the solar exists, or if it would encompass the entire parcel.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
To be
I-
determined. Okay.
I think the easiest way would be to just rezone the portion of the parcels where the solar arrays will be and leave the rest in the
Okay.
commercial C zone. But again, we
Okay.
would need to revise the solar farm district to reduce the setback to the CC setback. I'm not sure exactly how I would write that, but I'll give it a shot.
I think that would be the approach that I would favor, to rezone the solar arrays to the solar farm district. Okay. Yeah, that's it.
I forget which part of your ordinance it's in. I think it might be in your general performance standards for solar farms. I guess that would be kind of a consistent approach to the language dealing with the airport industrial zone, where there's a defined setback for 20 feet from property lines for that zone for solar. So I don't know
Yep.
if it's
So this would be
it's
the
consistent
same.
with that. It would just be your choice of how the
Yeah.
wording would be best represented, I guess.
Yeah, it's kind of an awkward ordinance in that the setback concerning airport industrial zone ended up in the performance standards, but we need to
Yeah.
change the solar farm district. We could use similar language in the solar farm district.
So I'm happy
Yeah.
to coordinate with Ann. I don't know how formal you want to get on the zoning amendment piece now. If you want, I'm happy to work with her on language to send to you for one of your next meetings to review.
yeah,
or
I
if it-
just
if it
don't
goes
want you
back
to get
council.
held up in a
Yeah.
back and forth. So that's why, I mean, I would just like to see it done in a way that doesn't add solar to the commercial C zone, because while it's appropriate here, there's other parts of the city that I don't think would necessarily be appropriate always for solar. In my opinion, I don't want to put words in other people's mouths, but so I'm just trying to think of a way that allows for this without doing that zone. And I wonder if it's even changing the zoning ordinance, the airport, or the solar farm zoning ordinance to accommodate more flexibility for smaller arrays. You know, should we change the language rather, you know?
Personally, I'm not sure whether it's the size that we care about. I think it's more what's around it. That was
Yeah.
my thinking, was it's surrounded by commercial development.
Oh, yeah, I have no problem with this whatsoever.
I don't know whether I should draft something and run it by, I mean, you could conceivably vote to recommend that the council rezone just the arrays to solar farm district and reduce the setback requirement to those in the general industrial zone, or the CC zone is what he's in right now. But I'm not sure exactly how you qualify it. Something to the effect that if it's surrounded by commercial development, commercial zones.
Something to the effect that the project would be applying under the umbrella of the solar farm district with a proposed amendment to the solar farm district to allow for projects to meet the setbacks of the zone they come from with the approval of the board or something like that. I think that's what you're getting at. I'm not sure what the right way to make that the ordinance language
Well, I
read
could
for-
draft something and run it by our city solicitor and then run
I
it
think
by you. If
anything in draft two, I'd want, Chris Gauntz as the property owner
Yeah,
to
of
just be
course.
comfortable
Okay.
and not sign him up for rezoning his land without, his
Okay,
his consent and approval for that.
Okay. All right, so I'll make a stab at that and run it by you and Chris and the city solicitor and let you know what I've come up with before I send it to the city council. I don't think
Yeah.
to send it to the city council, you have to have the exact language because you only recommend to the council anyway.
Right. I mean, I just don't want to see like us tearing down buildings on College Ave or something to put up solar arrays.
That
know.
that could happen.
Right.
Yeah.
That's my concern of having blanketly putting it into the entire CC zone, right?
Okay, so do you want to vote, how you want to go with this? Because you haven't had
Sure.
any
So
kind of vote.
if I make a motion to accept this plan, and find a way to rezone the Gauntz property to allow for the solar in a way that doesn't create a change to the entire zone. How's that?
Well, I don't know that you need to discuss what you're avoiding. It's just what you want to create, how you want to revise the solar farm district. Right, you're willing to have a decreased setback requirement if it's surrounded by commercial development.
So I don't understand why we can't just have that as the contract zone, like a contract zone
Okay.
solar
If you
that
read-
says 20-foot setbacks.
If
or
you
something.
read the contract zone regulations, which come from the state law, you can limit the uses allowed, but you can't add uses. So you have to start with a zone that allows uses, and then you cut them back. In other words, for example, where Butler with a contract zone.
Yeah, no, I understand.
You start it with a base zone of commercial A.
So can we
And then-
can call it airport industrial then, and say that it's used for solar?
So you want to.
Those two spots?
Okay,
Because those
yeah,
have
that's
the
that is
20
a, yeah,
foot
that's a very,
setbacks, right?
that's a much easier way to go about it. Okay, hang on just a minute. Okay. All right, so instead of zoning it to solar farm district, you could rezone it to a zone that allows solar farms. We just have to make sure the setbacks are small enough.
Which is airport industrial, that has the 20-foot
Airport industrial has 20-foot
Setbacks.
setbacks. Yep.
This is
Okay.
currently showing about 25-foot setbacks as a little bit
Okay.
of a buffer, so
But the 20 works,
20
right?
would be, great
Yeah,
just to
it's-
have a little bit of
yeah,
buffer.
Less than 25. So, okay, we'll try again. Do you think Chris isn't watching via Zoom, is he?
I don't know, but I will catch up with him tomorrow
Yeah.
morning.
O-
so.
Okay, so what I would suggest, I think it would be best for Chris, and I don't know this, but I would think he would only want the solar arrays rezoned
Right.
and not, because
Yeah, the
his
other-
automotive uses aren't allowed in airport industrial
Yeah,
district.
no other uses on the property are changing based on this.
Yeah.
So, and
Okay.
I think that would be accurate. He doesn't want to compromise the existing use of the property.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
I think we just want the solar array.
Okay, so let me make sure I have this right. We rezone, you're recommending to the council that we rezone the solar array portion of the properties, and I would need to know what the boundaries are to put it in the ordinance.
Yep.
To airport industrial district, period.
Yep.
That's brilliant.
Thank you.
Good job, Sam.
That's why you pay me the $25.
That's why I you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you maybe just add in some language of with consent of landowner prior to moving that to council or anything?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Just to make sure he is
Oh,
is okay
yes.
with that before it's
Okay, okay.
becomes a
Yeah,
formal
if Chris
motion,
is
I guess.
comfortable with that. If not, let's find another way.
Okay.
It seems
If
silly to
he's-
me that a landowner can't put their own solar array on their own land. You know, like, that shouldn't be an issue.
Yeah, I can't imagine why he would object to that zoning, because that's all we're talking about.
Yeah, unlikely. I guess I'm just hesitant
Yeah.
to have anything be,
Yeah, you don't
be
want to commit him to
locked
something,
in by planning vote to move forward without just running it by him.
Okay. All right. Okay, but before I send it to the city council.
He would
I
have to.
make sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That we have the consent, so
Yeah.
I'm not, yeah, all right. Yes, when it goes to the council, I'll have the ordinance language, and the ordinance language doesn't have to be the same as the motion. So, yeah, I've got it. All right, so we need, that was your motion.
Yep.
We don't have a second yet.
Second.
Okay.
I'll second.
Oh.
Any
well,
discussion?
I'm gonna,
Put Matt.
I
that's
think
fine.
Matt was first.
He's correct.
Any further discussion? Okay, we'll do a roll call. I am a yes. Matt?
Yes.
April?
Yes.
Hillary?
Yes.
Bruce?
Yes.
And Tom?
Yes.
Okay.
Great. And I guess any other just project-specific unzoning related questions? I think otherwise the solar ordinance is straightforward. All of those are easy to meet in terms of, utilities, fencing, access, decommissioning, all those things. So
Right, that's the performance standards,
Yeah.
not the solar
Yeah.
farm district,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, so you would have to come back with your project.
yeah, I guess I'm just
For-
saying while I'm here, if there were any questions
Oh,
about
Yeah.
about those
any
items,
other
which
things before he brings
I'm
his
happy to
final
speak
plan?
to. They're all straightforward, so I don't anticipate
Do you
too
have
many
to have
issues.
access? Well, I guess you could through that back parking lot, right? Like the
Yeah, there won't be any changes to what's existing
So
access
that would be
along
like
this area, and
the
then
access point.
yeah, and then each of the fenced areas would have double gate Knox box,
Yeah.
so that would be should be sufficient.
Is the access point going to be on this side for both, or on the road for the larger array?
Both would come through here,
Okay.
so essentially through here and then continue on down here.
Yep. Great.
Minimize new impervious areas for the site. So that is all I have for you.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Number 7, Edward Thompson is requesting rezoning for 2 CV Street from Commercial C to Commercial C1 for apartments. This is my time to shine with the screen share.
Oh, bless you.
Actually, I don't know if this is gonna work. Stop share. I need to pull them up.
Maybe he could just come up and explain what he's doing.
Yeah,
while you're-
absolutely. Come on up. Sorry.
Hi, I'm Ed Thompson. I own 2 CV. It was previously a vending business. All I'd like to do on the downstairs is make it a one-bedroom instead of a commercial. I had no luck finding any use for it, keeping it in a commercial business, and I just prefer to make it a residential living quarters, and that's pretty much the whole surrounding area around the building is that way now. So,
Yeah, we have a residential C on the other part of CV. And has there been any talk about rezoning kind of this swath into the commercial C1?
No, it's something that the housing committee would like to look at in the future.
Okay, have they considered looking at it?
Not yet. They have a meeting tomorrow, and it's possible they'll have time in their agenda to. I sent them materials about
Yeah,
this.
I just remember when we did the other side of the street, I had asked, why didn't we do the other side of the street? And it was just like way too much notification, right, at one time
Yeah.
to pay for. So obviously, I think that we should rezone this. I think we should allow housing wherever we can allow housing. But I think we should probably look at adding the CC1 to the other side of College Ave now as well, right? Because like you said, I mean, it's on one side of the street, and then the other side of this property is all residential C. Like, this whole area seems to be a great spot to be a CC1 especially. So that's just my 2 cents on the matter. Does anybody else have any comments? April.
So CSX has purchased Pan Am that runs that intermodal facility, and there's going to be increase in traffic. I don't like the idea of increasing residents in that area. It's a health issue. I mean, people that live that close. I mean, you're some of the, what is it? How do you say it? Vigi Street that runs right parallel. What is it? Vigu. You're looking at like maybe 100 feet until you're looking onto cargo containers. You end up with a lot of fine diesel particulate matter in those sort of distances. It just seems like, especially for that whole neighborhood, I personally disagree with turning it into a residential area.
But where this is, it's already residential.
The CC isn't. The
Right.
RC is, right? And
Right.
that's
And this is
grandfathered
the-
in
but
because.
this is the building we're talking about.
Which is
Right here.
not in a situation where it can be residential, correct? Which is why we're having this conversation.
Right.
So I looked at the building dates for those that are in the residential C, and those build dates are 1900. And so they're predating that intermodal facility. And so, I mean, that's a property ownership issue. I have nothing to say about those buildings and residences being there. But if we're having a conversation about whether we want to encourage more residential over there in buildings that aren't grandfathered in, I don't feel comfortable with that. But again, that's my opinion.
So you're saying you don't support allowing one more unit? What you're saying, I think, is you don't want to ask the council to look at rezoning the whole area?
Right, or even the one. I mean, because it becomes kind of a, well, okay, so we get some creep and then like, right. I guess I'm not in favor of increasing residential areas there. I mean, that's, yeah. But that's why we're a board. We have many opinions.
Any other comments?
Just to be clear, are you recommending
I've
just
got-
that one corner there?
He's recommending this that's
No,
in
I know
yellow.
that, but in your recommendation,
I'm recommending,
just that one
yeah,
section right there?
around that
Yeah,
section.
okay.
And even like right here, like we also have a CC1 here, and then moving.
That one is actually CA,
Oh.
and it was rezoned for a gentleman who needed to
Have a
build a
house.
garage. His wife was having trouble walking, and so
Yeah.
he needed to get her close to the house, so that was only about a
Yeah,
garage.
and
a
I'm
setback
specifically
requirement.
talking about as it goes up this way, this whole side of College Ave there, right? Like adjacent to the street.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was talking about this whole block just because it's kind of a continuation of the existing residential.
Correct, right.
block.
Okay.
The literature shows that even residences as close as those that you're saying the block along College Ave, that there are health impacts to living that close to an intermodal facility. So, just
It's
so
not a
everybody
new
knows.
Intermodal facility though.
What's that?
The fumes have been bad there for a long. I used to go to Gilly's gym back
Yeah,
before
it's
I got
not
lazy
new.
and.
Well, I
Yeah.
know
No,
it's
no,
not
the
new, but we
fumes-
don't need to encourage
Yeah.
people to live there 24/7 at this point, right? I mean, like if we know it's already bad and it's going to get worse because the traffic is increasing because CSX is sending more business. I'm just saying.
Bruce.
Yes, and I appreciate April, bringing that to our attention. I would be okay though at this point, not trying to do the whole property, the whole area, but at least, we're just going to be recommending to the council. I'm okay with at least taking the first step, sending it to the council. They're going to have 2 readings, correct? And so I think this small piece would make sense to just move it forward for this property owner, personally. But I do appreciate April bringing up that concern as well. So I think maybe we shouldn't deal with the whole area at this point. And again, I think we can send it to council and let have more public input at that point and go from there.
Yeah, maybe that's a good point for the housing committee. Anne.
Okay.
So with that being said, I'd like to make a motion that we send this to the council.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second?
I'd second that.
Okay, we'll do a roll call. So this is just to rezone the one parcel for Ed Thompson that he's requested his own parcel.
Right, Sam, just one more comment. I'm not trying to cut off discussion either. I'm just putting the motion out there. We can obviously continue discussion on it. I just want to make that clear as well.
Thank you, Bruce. Is there
because
any
if
further
there's any public,
discussion
right.
on the motion?
Maybe just that Ann brings it up to the committee again to revisit.
I'll bring to the housing committee.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
that would be great.
I'm sorry. Did you want that in the motion, or you just trust me to do it?
No, just clarifying.
Okay.
that
Put it
yes,
in the
I
minutes,
trust you.
Ann.
I trust you.
All right, any comments from the public?
What was that to bring what to the housing committee?
Just these comments, Bruce, about whether or not to put CC1 on the other side of the street as well. Anne had mentioned that the housing committee was interested in looking at that. So I think it's important that we give them April's feedback as well.
Yes, correct. Good. But this would go separately then.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not a formal recommendation, just something for the minutes that Anne will reiterate to the committee
Right.
Right.
And
when they're looking at housing in Waterville.
to be clear, like I definitely understand that we're in a real tight spot with housing and that we really need to get people places to live, but we shouldn't do so at the cost of their health. So if there are other places that we can do it better, then we should do that. So.
Right, and may I ask a question? I'm sorry.
Yes.
But we're voting to recommend to rezone it, correct?
Yes,
Bruce, that's what you're making a motion to do, correct?
to rezone this one little property that he's asked to be rezoned.
Yep. Okay, thanks.
The other tangent there that we were on is that the housing committee is interested in looking at if this would be CC1, along the other side of College Ave, like we had done on the other side of College Ave that's currently CC1. And so Anne is going to, bring back our feedback and April's comments about the health concerns. Would this be a big swath of mixed-use housing? Did I clarify that okay? So we're only voting on the rezone. Is there any...
Right, no, I'm clear on that. Yeah, thank you.
Like where I've highlighted. Are there any other comments? Any members of the public? Okay, so we will vote. So I'm a yes. Matt?
Yes.
April?
No.
Tom?
Yes.
Bruce?
Yes.
And Hillary?
No.
Okay, so there are 6 of you here too. So 4 in favor?
Yep.
Okay. That carries.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, number 8. Is it Herget Group? Self-Storage is requesting informal pre-application review for contractor suites on Industrial Road.
Oh, do you want to stop sharing?
Oh, yes, I would love to.
Good evening. I'm Jeff Allen from AE Hudson and representing Herget Group. Like the Center Main Motors application, we have the kind of the next 2 things on here, so I'm going to kind of roll them together if that's okay.
Yep, that's fine.
Why don't if I can share my screen here, what I'd like to do is show you the plan that we have sort of envisioned for some contractor suites and self-storage units up it's between Industrial Road and Drummond Avenue. So this, couple different things going on here. This is the property here. It's part of an older industrial park that was created years ago that just never got developed. And as we've investigated it, we've kind of seen why that there have been some hurdles to deal with. But the Herget Group, you're right, that is difficult to say, bought this property or is buying this property and wants to do a couple different things. Some would be some self-storage units that I can show you the full gamut of what they want to do later. This beginning part of the project is just a couple contractor suites buildings that would be off of Drummond Avenue. This street down here is Drummond Avenue, and this is sort of the end of where the residential development is. There's a large field up here. And this is the right-of-way that's 60 feet wide that goes down from this large parcel up here to provide right-of-way onto Drummond Avenue. Looking at this and doing some early design work, it's very steep going up there, so we're going to have to come back and deal with that a little bit. But this is sort of like the phase 1 of the project. This is less than an acre, so would not require DEP permitting. But I can show you what the big picture is that once we go to DEP permitting, this is the area we're working on over here now. Just these 2 contractor suites building. And then the remainder of this would be self-storage units up here And this is Industrial Road way up in the corner here. So it's a much bigger picture than just this development here in the corner, but this gives us an opportunity to start some construction this year. If once we get permitted through the city, that would be allow us more time to prepare a DEP site location development project application that'll have all the stormwater, all of the other components that are necessary for a DEP permit. So going back to what we have here, oops, there we go. The other issue that the second part of our process is this little stub down here, going from the edge of the property boundary here down to Drummond Avenue is currently zoned residential B. The rest of this is all commercial, and that's exactly what we want it to be. But to get to it, we'd have to have this rezoned from residential B to commercial, and that would allow us simply access. The only thing we're doing in that zone would be creating access. I should go back to the other lot here. We had wetlands mapped here before. This is the area we're looking at developing right down here. This is Drummond Avenue. Industrial Road goes up around like this, and there's some access ways here. The problem with coming in this way is this is all a wetland and a stream, and we'd be working right next to the wetland and the stream. What we're planning for development is only in the upland areas. So ideally we'd have zero wetland impact, nothing near the wetlands. It would be a very clean development by accessing it from this corner. So that was our approach to doing just this development down this way. So one other thing I guess Ann had mentioned that she had a question about was, this is kind of on a corner right here. It's more clearly seen here. And some folks had been concerned, and rightly so, that if you've got traffic going up into the storage units and the contractor suites up here, would you be able to, would they have a clear line of sight when they pulled out into traffic? And so I went up yesterday afternoon and set up a traffic cone here, and then going up toward Fairfield, straight road you can see for miles. There's no problems at all up there. Down this way, there are a lot of mailboxes that are right along in front of these homes, and between the mailboxes and some vehicles parked in the driveway, sometimes there's a little obstruction there. So I drove down the road here and then sort of walked back up, zigzagging across the road into, when there wasn't any traffic. And I could see my traffic cone that I located right up here. I could see my traffic cone from about 600 feet away. So I then looked at the ordinance. The ordinance actually only requires 160 feet line of sight, because this is a 25-mile-per-hour street. It seems that people may travel a little faster there, but I think we have a good buffer between the 160 feet that's required and the roughly 600 feet that I could see. So that's one of the concerns that I know we wanted to look at. But so, what I want to do is the other part is introducing the project here. And so this is the project as it stands right now. It's just some self-storage units, contractor suites. And I believe there would be either 8 or 9 suites here. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this or not, but the contractor suites are an area where contractors working in the area would come and maybe stage some of their equipment, some supplies or whatever, that they'd be able to leave it here and not have to take, compressors and all their equipment back and forth to another site. If they're based out of Bangor or Portland or Brunswick or whatever, they could leave a lot of that material here and wouldn't have to haul it back and forth, or maybe leave some of the larger construction trucks here and just drive back and forth in more economical vehicles, cars or smaller pickup trucks. So that's all that would be going into these units as the Mr. Hergert currently envisions it. So
Any questions
I guess
members of the
that's
board?
all.
So the stump that goes down to Drummond Avenue, that's really the only way to access the property from the south. You can't get to it from industrial. That's the whole issue, right?
You can get there, but it probably would be some wetland disturbance. Looking back at the other drawing here, we could zoom in over on this area, and that I drove along industrial the other day, and there's a big culvert that goes under there, and then this is very steep here. So we'd definitely be having some wetland impact here, and we'd be crossing this stream here, or drainage way that would be the only other way to get into the property here.
So we're looking at increasing traffic. I mean, because it's not just a storage unit. And I'm actually not entirely certain that I can make any sort of statement about what vehicles typically visit storage units. I've only ever been in a personal vehicle, but I would bet U-Haul trucks would go back there. But you're saying also contractor vehicles and other equipment, right? That are going to be going then past all those residences on Drummond? Is that right?
That's right. Yeah,
Okay.
that's right. And Drummond is a pretty major road. There's a lot of traffic on it. I haven't looked at a traffic count yet to actually figure out what that is, but it's a lot of traffic going between Waterville and up to Fairfield. So it's I think it would have a very small impact there. This is very steep, so it would be quite a little bit of a challenge to haul equipment up there. But the way I looked at it, some of it's going to be around an 8 or a 10% slope. That's the same sort of steep, road grade that you see on North Street going up to Colby. When you go under the railroad bridge and then head up the hill, that's about the same slope that we'd be developing in here.
Question?
Yeah, Bruce.
Comment maybe. But in theory, the storage units, I mean, I'm assuming, I don't have one yet, but people would probably put their stuff in there, temporarily, and then, maybe they've got a 2-car garage, but they have stuff that needs room for like a 3-car garage. So they store it there, and they're not going to be going there in most cases on a daily basis.
Right.
Maybe those units. And I get what April was saying too about the contractors is a little different, but the storage units are not a lot of high traffic once they've got stuff in them.
Right. I agree completely. Storage units, I've talked to several developers that do these, and they say, people show up and drop off their stuff, and then they come back 3 months later and swap out their snow tires for regular tires, or, it's a very infrequent visit. The contractors will, be similar. They'll be there in the morning to get their equipment, and then probably late afternoon to drop it off, and be able to head back to their homes. So there'd be more traffic from the contractor suites. I don't know how to actually assess that, but I would assume with each suite, there'd be, 2 or 3 vehicles pulling in the morning and then pulling out to go to a job site, and the same in the afternoon to pull in the afternoon and drop off the equipment that they don't need for the day. That would be my estimate.
Thank you. That seems to make sense.
So just a clarifying question. I'm not familiar with contractor suites. When you talk about bringing equipment up there, I guess when I was talking about traffic, I was more thinking about the types of vehicles that would be going up there. So are we, like, I understand it's infrequent with a storage unit, and so personal vehicles are not, you wouldn't think it would be too big of an issue. But if you have, much larger vehicles, a 26-foot U-Haul going up there, if you have, I don't know, as far as contractor suites, are we talking about like large, like backhoes? Are we talking about, like, oh, I have a bunch of carpentry equipment and a trailer and I would like to have a place to put that? Or are we talking about, just toolbox? What are we talking about?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know as there isn't one answer that's going to be accurate for all of that. Worst case scenario the buildings are about 50 feet wide by, the units will be about 30 feet long, 30 feet this way, and the building itself is 50 feet wide. So they could store backhoes in there. They could store building supplies, so they might bring a, I'm thinking at least like an F-350 pickup or a 3/4 ton pickup in and loading up a trailer. Maybe they bring it back in the evening and then swap out, some equipment for new equipment. So there will be some large equipment that'll be hauled in and out, but just being stored temporarily here under cover. I don't, it'll be probably more than just a few toolboxes or whatever that you could put on a pickup truck. I think it'd be more pickup trucks and maybe small trucks, backhoes, that would just be stored here. They wouldn't be used here. So they'd be hauled in on a trailer and left for the weekend or for the night, and then hauled out to go to the next job site in the area. That I think is the worst case scenario.
Thank you.
And there's no way to make it work off of Industrial Street, like where there's already large trucks and, I mean, you talked about how there's quite a bit of traffic on Drummond. I mean, there is, and that's kind of a neighborhood. So, having trucks in and out, like right in front of people's homes, I think that's why we have that industrial street. So, there's no way to make that work.
You may be able to do it, but not without wetland impacts. That was our primary concern. And this is what Mr. Hergert had proposed and was concerned about the wetland impact. So, I mean, we could look at that over there. We've looked at a couple different scenarios, maybe working with the nearby landowners to allow access across this property, for example, would work. But there are some other options. But again, everything up here is a little more difficult because this is also very steep fill where the contours are very close together here. And trying to snake a road in here without filling the wetlands is more difficult. So it's kind of a, catch as catch can. There's no easy way to access the site. That's why it's been for sale for so long, because it's a difficult site to develop.
If you're on Drummond Avenue, kind of looking up the slope, you can see a tower of some variety. Is it? Do you know? Is that is that a cell tower up there? And I'm asking the question because there's a spur that comes off of Industrial, and I'm wondering if it services that, because I'm looking at an aerial shot here. I don't know if, like, is it possible that you can get some sort of access there, or do you know what I'm talking about? You said you had been there and with the traffic cone, so I was maybe hoping you had seen it.
I actually don't know. I was just looking at this area right here.
I'm just wondering if I can see.
Yeah, so it kind of, see where it looks like a roadway coming off of Drummond
Right
and
here?
going up? It like arcs kind of north and east. Yeah, right over there.
It'd be over in this area, okay.
Yeah, yeah, and it
Yeah,
goes through
so-
that like little barren spot right there and continues, and then there's a spur that then strikes northwest to industrial.
Okay,
It looks like it looks like a road. I don't know.
yeah. It probably is like a field road or something. The problem is it's not really on our property.
Yeah, yeah.
That is something to look at. Yeah, absolutely. To maybe consider that as being another access point. But it's still. I'm looking at the contours here. These are just from the city map. This is also very steep right here. So at some point we're going to have to, bite the bullet and get up the hill. And it's like this is about elevation 160 up here and elevation 130 down on the street. So it's about 30 feet higher up here where we're building than down on the street. So yeah, I'll take a look at that. That may be an opportunity that I had missed.
Bruce, and then we'll move to members of the public.
This may be for Ann. Did any abutters have to get notified on this?
Yep.
There's one here.
That's why we're going to
Yes,
get to members of
I did
the
send out
public.
letters to butters that's required by ordinance. Oh, sorry. Did you hear what I said?
Yes,
No.
the butters were notified.
I couldn't hear you, Samantha.
Yes, abutters were notified as required by the ordinance. We have one here. That's what I'm getting
Okay.
to.
And maybe there are some here, that's great. Did any others contact Ann that maybe couldn't make it, I wondered?
No, only one. You are the gentleman who called me. Yes, just one.
Thank you. Just wanted to make sure.
Do you want to give any input? Do you mind coming up to the microphone so the people online can hear you? Yeah, it's perfect. Thank you.
Can everybody on the kind of webcam hear me okay?
Yes.
We can hear you.
Perfect. My name is Randy Cummings, and I'm the property owner of 94 Drummond Avenue. I've owned the property for about 8 years and have lived in central Maine almost my entire life. It may be helpful for this discussion if we can actually look at the aerial view.
Yep, hang
If
on
the
a second.
person screen sharing would be so kind. And if we kind of zoom out
out,
where we
maybe.
can catch Drummond. So let's see. Yep. So just to point it out for folks here, this is my property right here. And this is the
Is it
property-
this one?
Yes, sir. Yep. Yep.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
So I just want to call out a couple features of Drummond Avenue for folks that may not be as familiar. Specifically, as we talk close to the curve in the road, just beyond the curve, and I don't know exactly where it is, we go from 25 miles an hour to 40 or 45. I don't travel to Fairfield too often for that direction, so I don't know exactly where that is. But some of the concerns that I have are for safety. And this winter, I've replaced my mailbox 4 times from traffic clipping it going around the curve. So not plow trucks, I'm finding passenger car mirrors in my front lawn. We also have across the street and closer to the armory, we have low-income housing. I don't know if that's the political correct term to use for that, but lots of children. So the traffic speed, the heaviness of the traffic is a concern for me. When we talk about the grade of that right-of-way that we're talking about rezoning, where it is so steep, typically floods every winter from the snow melt. So you'll have large wet spots and flooding right there on the curve. So some of my concern is specifically the type of traffic that'd be traveling through there down that grade of potentially heavy vehicles that are, freighted up, sliding down into the road. I know I don't want to take anything away from the gentleman or company or entity buying the property behind me. I would love to do whatever I want with my property. I'm not one to tell someone else what to do with theirs. I am very surprised that the property is even being considered, considering how hilly and sloped it is behind my property, which I've walked. I actually think that there's more concern with it having high spots and having anything running downward into the wetlands. Right now I have deer in my backyard. I've got foxes, lots of wildlife back there. And currently, without this type of activity behind my property, tons of noise pollution currently from the industrial park behind me. And that noise pollution is typically the backup beepers of heavy equipment now and the types of trucks back there in the industrial park at all hours of the night backing up, and the slamming of tailgates of dump trucks. So the existing heavy equipment that's back there and vehicles that are back there are noise pollution to the residents on Drummond Avenue now. And my concern is that would only get worse with increased heavy equipment contractor type activity there. So those are the comments that I've got.
Yeah, I wonder too, Jeff, like if you're gonna clear a bunch of that, how will that impact drainage?
Well, when we do the drainage, we'll, as I said, we're going to have a Maine Department of Environmental Protection permit. That's going to require that the runoff rate after we develop it, and frankly, a lot of it's going to be paved or gravel surface. We're going to have to kind of dampen that down, attenuate it, so it's no more than what's running off there now. Thank you, Mr. Cummings, for bringing that up. Those are good concerns. Once you get up here, this area is pretty flat, and so where we're developing, let me look over in this other one here. We're kind of avoiding these two. This used to be a gravel pit, and so they mined all the gravel out of here, and this area now, down here is now a wetland. So we're actually not going down the hill again with any paving or whatever. We're kind of staying up on the flat areas. The overall goal to not fight all these hills. But we will have some stormwater ponds, perhaps in these areas that are not wetlands. But that's going to be back here. They will probably, after they treat the water for quantity and quality, they'll be discharged into the wetland and go as where it runs off to now. I appreciate his concerns about coming down the hill here. We are going to have to do something with the stormwater there. There are some different options we could do with underground storage that again would store the water and release it more gradually. And also try to divert as much of it as we can before it comes down the hill. Just in this small area here, we're having a stormwater pond that will treat the runoff from this phase one. For these properties, it'll be a small stormwater area here. So yeah, that's going to be kind of the bane of my existence for a couple of weeks till we figure out how to deal with that. But I think I'm pretty confident that we will be able to do that.
Hillary.
I raised my hand, after he spoke. So I can certainly appreciate generally people who store things, I agree, have a tendency to store things and leave them for months and maybe come back. I would think the increased noise might be from clearing trees that might act as sort of a buffer for noise, and then any construction vehicles that would be accessing those suites. And I don't really know that there would be a way to address that. I think there's just going to be increased noise. Jeff, what do you think?
Actually, noise is one of the issues that's addressed in the DEP site location permit. We have to make a statement that we're addressing that. One thing I thought of as you were speaking is this area is predominantly wooded now, but these buildings will actually form somewhat of a sound buffer from noise coming over from the industrial park here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, sound doesn't. This will deflect the sound up essentially,
right.
And
right.
so that there may be some help. I'm not going to claim that because I don't
right.
know it to be true, but you know, just logically, what I understand about sound is that it's easily redirectable with flat surfaces, and so these walls and the roofs here may deflect some of the sound. As you get a more dense development here, I don't know how sound is going to channel down the alleyways here. That's way above my pay grade, but.
Yeah, I'm thinking more of like at construction vehicles. Like I stayed at a hotel a couple weeks ago, and there was construction on the street. And you know, those construction vehicles, they're set when they back up. They just beep, 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 beep.
that stinking federal law, you know, you got to do this. But that's one good thing about this is there will be some contractor noise up here. But if you know, they'll be just backing into the building, and then they're not going to sit there and have their backup alarms going for 10 minutes at a time. They're going to, you know, get in their vehicles and go, or get out of their vehicles, offload equipment, or, you know, reposition it into their storage units. You know, these are sort of like large storage units. So, and again, this should be quiet on the weekends, which would be great for neighborhoods. Contractors usually don't work on the weekends, but you know that.
No, I'm thinking Mr. Cummings is sitting there thinking, no, they're going to be there at 5 a.m. before they start work at 8, right? Or 7.
Before they start work at 6.
Yeah, okay.
He's not wrong. That's, and you know, I've talked some with Mr. Herget about this, and he said, you know, we wanted to do the self-storage or the contractor suites here because it's right next to our entranceway. Mm-hmm. You know, I can give him some feedback on this that I'm hearing from you guys, and they're logical feedback. You know, perhaps we move the contractor suites up here and just do some self-storage for phase 1.
I like that.
I can't tell him what to do because it's his project and his money.
Right.
But I could, I would be happy to pass along that feedback.
Okay, thank you.
I'm still not sold that the best exit and entrance is off of Drummond. And I don't know if it's going to be the safest. I mean, Mr. Cummings just, you know, brought up some good points about that corner already and the safety concerns there. I don't know. I'm just not sold on it, especially when we have a industrial road that's perfectly suited for this type of development.
I absolutely see your point. Again, that's some other positive feedback that I'd be happy to pass on to Mr. Herker.
Yeah, I would just be interested in if you can make that work.
Yeah. One thing I did want to point out on this plan is when they did this subdivision back, Ann, was this in the 80s or 70s that this was done? They did provide a right-of-way coming in here. So this is a paper street that comes in right here. And when you superimpose this on our wetlands plan, it wipes out all the wetlands. So maybe, you know, that's not the way I want to do that. If we came in, however, on this side of the wetlands, I think we could avoid most of them and get into a similar type of design here, coming down, going around the corner. Given the grade that we have over on this road coming up from Drummond, that might not be an impossibility. So again, I'm very happy to pass this information on to Mr. Hergert. However, the one thing we are asking for tonight is that zone change, and that would only be necessary if this becomes our entrance. So, yeah, I don't know where we go with that.
So that little stump, we want to change it from residential B to commercial C. Yes, that's what we're doing. That's what we're looking to do. So I don't know. In the future, we don't know what's going to happen necessarily with this property, other than if we change that little stump to CC. A lot of I don't know a lot. I mean, you could end up with traffic in there that would be pretty disruptive, right, in the future, as far as like heavy machinery or more construction.
Yeah, it could become a totally different
A
project
FedEx,
too. Yeah.
packaging facility or something. And so I don't know if I'm entirely comfortable with that, but yeah.
Bruce.
Was that a question? Because I don't have an answer.
It was a comment,
It was,
I think.
Yeah, I think more.
Okay.
Bruce.
Right, so I guess I'm just thinking through this as well. So I know they're pushing for the rezone, but anything, even a rezone, that doesn't mean they're going to have to come back to us with any project. So if we don't feel comfortable with something because of noise or whatever, it doesn't mean it gets approved either. Jeff seems to be listening to the concerns, and so he knows this isn't a done deal. So I'm just kind of throwing that out, correct? That the rezone doesn't mean the project goes.
That's right. And if we don't rezone, that doesn't mean the project dies. It just means we can't use that entrance. I will note that its current zone is residential B. It doesn't meet the current lot standards because a residential B requires, I think, 100 feet of frontage. And this frontage on Hammond that we have right here is 60 or 60.2 feet or something. It's closer to 60 feet than it is 100. Maybe I can show it better here.
Right.
This distance.
Well, and I will say that I appreciate the process that we have, that whatever we do, whether it's recommending or not, it's going to be ultimately the city council's decision whether to agree with us or not. And so I want to make a motion that we send this recommendation to the city council, and we'll let them have 2 more meetings to discuss it.
Okay, there's a motion.
I would second that, and then with the understanding that the project explores the idea of entering from Industrial Street before coming back to us, whether it's feasible or not.
Okay. Any further discussion?
And again, I'm just happy that we know that this will have plenty of more discussion at the city council level. But I feel we can debate this all evening. I think it's time to move at least one or another. So thank you.
Do you have a comment, Ann?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, the council is looking for your recommendation.
Right.
I don't think they're looking for you to tell them they should discuss it themselves.
Right. Our job is to give them a educated recommendation.
Right, but they will have to have 2 meetings, correct?
Right, I understand, Bruce, but we shouldn't just pass something
No, I'm not
through
saying that.
without,
I'm just saying
just because they get to vote on it.
They will have 2 more meetings with public input. Yeah, and I feel comfortable making that motion, but I also feel like there's a process that they don't always go by our recommendation.
Could I just comment that there's no public notification requirement for the council meeting?
This is the public hearing for this meeting. And we're supposed
Right,
to take
but
the feedback we get.
it obviously gets advertised and people become aware of it one way or another.
Right, but
That's-
we're holding the
that's my
public
point.
meeting and we're supposed to take the input and make a recommendation and
Correct.
whatever people want to do.
I know the
that's,
process and just,
yeah,
correct.
but our job is not just to
So
keep sending things back to the council and saying, well, it's up to them to make a decision. Like that's our job to give a recommendation. So that's what we're doing.
I understand that and I made my motion,
Okay.
so thank you.
Are there any other members of the public that would like to comment? Okay, great. So we will vote. I am a no. Matt?
Yes.
April?
No.
Hillary?
No.
Tom?
No.
Bruce?
Yes.
So 4-2, or 2-4, I guess.
Okay, Bruce and Matt, yes. Thank you.
Okay. With that, I will make a motion to adjourn.
Seconded?
Thank you.
Thank